blood god! Skulls for the skull throne! I don't care if blood flows as long as it makes the United Planets great again!
They were the heroes from the future. Teenagers protecting the universe from those that would sow the seeds of chaos. Each had unique powers and abilities, and though they often had their differences, they came together to save the day as the Legion of Superheroes. Now, you can be a part of their adventures and learn the history of the future in the Legion Clubhouse.
Matthew, there's a big fight going on. Maybe the last fight. Some people call fights battles. I know that's an archaic word, battle. But this book, issue 17, The Last Battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, the last battle.
Why do comics have to be so political? Here we have two people opposing sides, and one of them's basically advocating for the death and destruction of an entire group of people, of an ethnic group of people on this planet of Talok 8. Why do comics got to be political? Oh, I know. Comics have always been political, Matthew. Comics have always been political.
All art has always been political. And honestly, I'm gonna be frank with you. I could be earnest if you'd rather. This is the most interesting they have ever done with Grev Malor, the Shadow Kid. This literally is the first time in his
where he's happy that the hill people are dying. Well, at least it's the hill people.
He's something other than Shadow Lass's goofy understudy. I mean, he has basically Game of Thrones did. He's the leader of Talok 8. He has allied with the green people and married Lady Memory to unite their tribes. I mean, and of course, Talok 8 is one of the major battlegrounds against the Kundian Empire. I feel like, aside from the fact that he has an utterly ridiculous Mr. T haircut, this is the coolest Shadow Lad, a Shadow Kid, Shadow Boy, whatever you call him these days. This is the coolest Shadow Kid has ever been.
Yeah.
Bar none.
Yeah. Hey, new recruits, meat for the meat grinder, blood for the blood god. I mean, they don't care. They do not care that new recruits are dying left and right in this issue. They're like, oh yeah, they're new recruits. They are literally meat for the meat grinder.
Well, I mean, the Academy has been destroyed. The United Planets Academy has been overrun. People are getting blowed up.
What's funny is they don't call it. I guess they still call it the Academy, but it's like a military academy now, not like a Legion Academy. It's like the military academy. We are training recruits to die in the Kundian War.
That is exactly what it is, and which is one of the things that makes it really disturbing that it's still under the control of Chuck and Warnu, former Legionnaires, Bouncing Boy, and Duo Damsel. But even more so, rest in peace, Power Boy. They're killing people that we know.
Who?
Power Boy.
Power Boy.
He's a purple guy. Do you remember back in Volume 3 when they did that whole big thing where they're like, ooh, we're all... Okay. Do you remember anything?
I remember a lot of things.
Okay.
The problem is...
Do you remember...
The problem is they don't give these characters a chance to be reacquainted with the reader. Again, I've talked about this before, that the biggest problem with the 5 years later is it is a secret club that if you don't know the handshake, you don't get to participate in the fun and frivolity of wiping out masses amounts of people, page after page.
That is a fair
including Purple Boy, who we hardly remember.
Power Boy was last episode yelling at the White Witch. He has been a long-time Legion Academy duder. But yeah, he is extremely minor. I will say that he has more appearances than Kent Shakespeare at this point, who has apparently rejoined the Legion and immediately gone into battle and has had like no lines since then.
He's a surgeon as well. Is that his thing? Or again, is he supposed to be? Is he supposed to be Superman with all of the Silver Age Superman stuff, where Can't Shakespeare flip through an encyclopedia on medical procedures and therefore knows all medicine?
Kent Shakespeare is a medical professional. I don't believe he is a doctor, but I believe that he is, at the very least, a nurse and a medical student. Because when we first met him, he was on Medicus 1. That's why he was there
doing
when the
daycare
Persuader
stuff.
attack.
Yeah.
But he was a med student.
Oh, okay.
He was going through medical school at that point. So he is partially trained as a medical professional at this point.
All I know is I watched a show the other night where someone got cut open real bad, and instead of stitching them together, they just used field stitching. A jar of super glue and cold compress, and said, "Take 2 aspirin. Call me in the morning." So I feel like that's Kent's level of intelligence when they drag a body in, and he's like, "Oh, I can." Oh, good Lord.
Mm-hmm. Kent is a field medic, and I kind of feel for him. And honestly, if you look closely, it really does look like something has impaled Power Boy. I don't know if it's just the way it's drawn, but it looks like, because he's bleeding profusely.
No, he's
and then
like
there's that
dripping blood from his. He's dripping blood from his insides. It's pretty graphic.
But you see that blue thing above his head?
Yeah.
I think that is a piece of metal impaling him.
Yeah,
we're getting a little Hawkeye Pierce.
Sorry, there,
surgery.
purple dude. Sorry, purple dude.
Stop it. Power Boy's been around for 10 years.
Sorry, purple
He's
boy.
appeared 6 times.
Also, they're dead set on taking the inertron gates down, and they're like, "Oh, it should be no problem to take the inertron gates down." I thought inertron was this impenetrable metal that no one could forge, and that's why we had to put the wishing machine in there. So that no one could get to it, because we've encased it in inertron. And yet these people are like, you bring over the welding gear and we'll just cut right through this.
Inertron is very, very dense. It is virtually indestructible, but not adamantium indestructible. If you were going on your imaginary metal scale, it goes unobtainium, inertron, adamantium / vibranium. So inertron is not completely impenetrable. We've seen people break through inertron before. Ultra Boy does it.
Yeah, but he's Ultra Boy. He's not just a bunch of coons with a big lighter.
But these coons are using antimatter technology. They're using ancient, big, giant, pumpkin throwing trebuchets or whatever. So, I mean, and honestly, it's a Kund who says that, so he may be overconfident.
I mean, they do get their butts kind of kicked in this issue.
They do, and because they misunderstand one important thing, and we see it on page 1. There is no amount of bloodshed and death that will keep Quirrell Docs from going, "Oh, it's a fascinating problem." Throughout this issue, every time Brainiac speaks, I just hear Father Mulcahy from MASH. "It's the most remarkable machine. The gamma fusion weapons." And I'm just, it's a little disturbing, because this is Brainy calm, sane. This is probably as even-keeled as for Brainiac. This is as even-keeled as we've seen him in a while, but it's also, I see all this bloodshed and death, and what I really see is a fascinating puzzle to unravel.
Yeah, that's not the talk of a sane person. That's not the talk of a sane person. That's the talk of someone who's barely holding on, who's about to snap.
He's sane for Brainy. Keep in mind, Brainiac, he's not human. He's from a land of computers. His mom was a Brainiac. His granddad was a Brainiac. He's the first person to have the title of Brainiac and not be a complete genocidal Looney Tune. So he's more.
I mean, he waited until the Hill people were destroyed before he turned on his cold machine.
Right. And if cold neutralizes the weapons, it really is a bummer that the Legion doesn't have a cold guy, like somebody who manipulates heat to create giant zones of snow and ice.
Do they even know where he's at? Because isn't he on some secret mission with the reporter peoples?
No, Polar Boy is actually stuck on Tartarus, working for Evillo and training Evillo's trained twin daughters to be superheroes. Matter Eater Lad left him on Tartarus.
Yeah.
And the reason why is I love Keith Giffen. I do. But Keith Giffen has this thing where he's like, this character is a jerk and I'm not going to use him. Because literally, that is why.
That on himself.
Written by Keith Giffen.
Yeah, he brought it on himself.
Real characters, like a real person. If you and I are mad at each other for being a schmuck, that is something where you can say we brought it on ourselves. A character like Polar Boy, you're kind of like, this writer wrote Polar Boy as doing his thing. But it would have been confusion because Polar Boy sounds like Purple Boy and he wears purple. And
then he would be dead. And Ken Shakespeare would be like, alas, poor Purple Boy, I hardly knew ye.
Holding up his skull, just like his disembodied head.
Yes.
Poor Breck.
Oh, wait, is the skull supposed to be inside the body? Oh, my God. I read this whole book upside down.
Holding up a skull with ice on top and being like, a fellow of infinite chill. That's cool. Mon-El's back, and he's Mon-Elling all over the place.
So I have a real question about the role that Valor is playing along with Shadow Lass in this. Because, Valor in this book is very much a libertarian in that he is for reduced government, but he is also let the people decide. And if the people decide that they want to go with the insane group, then we have to let them go with the insane group. I can't go in and take over this world and tell them, no, you can't be with the sane group because I'm not that kind of person. And then in the next issue, he does the exact same thing, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I'm confused about the role of Valor and Shadow Lass in here because he just swoops in, says some platitudes, beats up some coons, helps overthrow a government, and then just moves on. It's like, oh, all of this stuff is in my way as me and my wife are trying to go and have fun. And it annoys me that all of this stuff is in my way.
I think, this really is the first appearance of the post-Glorith retcon Valor / Mon-El. And I think that we are, at this point, supposed to be very concerned. Because this is not, to coin a phrase, your father's Oldsmobile. This is a character who's acting not quite like Mon-El, but also not like Superman, but he has a little bit of that. You know how Superman was always a citizen of the world? Superman prided himself on knowing every language on planet Earth and being able to sit down and have a conversation with anyone, anywhere. Mon-El, or Valor, I hate that name so bad.
Yeah, but that's Valor. His name now. We have to respect
But Valor
that.
is like the opposite of that. He is a citizen of nowhere, and he just sort of floops around and swoops around.
That's why I'm saying he comes off as a man with no name kind of character where he rides in, does what needs to be done, and then he leaves. He doesn't have time to stick around because he and his wife, who really is more of a sidekick in these two issues, are here to do what needs to be done, almost like paid or hired hands, and then they're gone. Off to the next adventure. In fact, at the end of issue 18, they actually say something to that effect.
We can go back and resume our adventuring. Yeah. I feel like, for me, seeing Valor and Shadow Lass in action, they really are the proverbial sight for sore eyes for two reasons. One, they're both costumed adventurers, which is something that the Legion is not right now. Mon is still wearing his big red, Bob Cobb Nehru jacket, and Tasmia has her suit and her cape and her thing. But it also is I'm gonna tell you, you need 5 episodes from now. All of this is going to be given a resolution. But I feel like we right now are supposed to be concerned, or at least wondering what is up with Mon-El. This is something that feels out of character for him because it is. And I feel like this is a successful example of starting to build early rather than all of a sudden in the issue, here's all of the stuff that you probably would have seen. This is showing us this new Valor and what he's like and how he's not quite the Mon-El that we've known. And I remember being very annoyed by it back in 89, 90. But now, 35 years down the line, I can tell you, relatively well that it does go somewhere. It is going somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it does. It's just, you would think that
it's
somebody who
meant to
has
trouble
this
us.
large connection with the Legion, this centuries-old connection to the Legion, that he would be more invested in the safety of his fellow people, doing the right thing, as opposed to, I'm just out having an adventure, and you troubles keep getting in my way, darn it. I actually think Valor probably is somebody that doesn't use bad language. He's probably like, gosh darn, this makes me so tootin' mad.
Like he's like James Gunn Superman, was slightly aged up. So you figure, the Legionnaires are probably right now in their early 30s, or like Ayla is, and Brainiac and Cosmic Boy. You figure, for me at least, Valor is 40 something. Valor is the guy who's just like, yeah, I don't have time for your young kid nonsense. I figured out my life. Me and my wife, we're just going to go and we're going to travel around in our RV. We sold the house and we, sent the kids off to college, and now we're done with all this schmuckery. But I will say this. On the one hand, it was great to see the Legionnaires in battle against literal battleships. This is an example, and the third or fourth example in a row, of somebody with Kryptonian powers just absolutely imbalancing everything. Because Lightning Lass and Kono and Shadow Lass are all in play, and they're all like, oh, we're going to fight some Kun ships. And meanwhile, Valor is just zipping around, ripping things apart with his bare hand, doing all of the really hard work. And while I know it is hard to balance a Kryptonian level powerhouse with, a girl who can walk through walls and a girl who apparently her power is having red hair, I feel like the imbalance of here's the Daxamites and here's the rest of the Legion is really starting to show here. And I'm afraid it's going to get worse, but.
Oh, of course it will. So Glorith is apparently obsessed with collecting magical relics. There was a whole series of movies where there's an adventurer dude and he punched all of these fascists in the face because they were also looking for relics that would bring them magical powers so that they could rule forever.
Yeah, Alan Quatermain and the Mysterious Cities of Gold. I remember that. It had the guy from
Seven Cities of Gold, but
yeah, it had the guy from the Winds of War. What was his name? Richard.
Yeah. The guy that was in what was the one where he's the priest and he was trying to
was that China? I don't remember.
No.
See, I can't remember the guy's name.
I know he was like our parents. He was like Richard Chamberlain. He was like our parents.
Thank you.
He was our parents' like heartthrob guy.
Yep. There was Shogun. I think he wasn't Shogun. And then there was the other thing. Oh gosh, he was a priest.
Yeah, he was a priest. The Thornbirds. That's what it is. The Thornbirds.
That's what it is. Yes.
Yeah. 7 Night Event on ABC.
Also, he was Aramis at one point as the Musketeers. What? I thought you liked the Musketeers.
So Glorith. Well, yes, if this were a Musketeers podcast, but there's nobody here that acts like a Musketeer in the pages of this book. They all act like they could use a Snickers bar and go away, but nobody here acts like a Three Musketeers. Nobody has a nice nougat center, except maybe Brainiac or Purple Boy, who had all his nougat center leak out earlier in the book.
Dude, too soon.
I know it's too soon. Speaking of too soon, man, it is 1991, and poor old Bouncing Boy has to resort to 1980s fantasy tropes to get Misa to do her White Witch stuff. And then he has to, he's a better lawyer than Matter Eater Lad in this book, where she's like, oh, we need snow or something, the fallen snow. And he's like, well, this river here is kind of like melted snow. And I guess snow comes from the sky. And she's like, oh, okay, I guess I can use that. And he's like, oh, and this rock right here, this was, I stepped on it earlier and it caused a pain in my foot. And you said, we have to have something that causes great pain. This kind of could be it. And she's like, well, yeah, I guess. And then he says, the power's inside of you. It's always been inside of you. And I'm just like,
I
oh,
love, I love that
it's funny.
whole sequence.
It's funny, but at the same time, it is just so grown 1980s fantasy movie stuff.
I feel like it's straightforward earnest, and it really does for me sell my classic interpretation of Bouncing Boy, which is that he was never in the Legion because of his powers. He was in the Legion because of his resourcefulness.
Pink Ranger. He was the Pink Ranger.
His positivity, his resourcefulness,
he was
his
heart.
ability to keep everybody else on track. But more importantly, Chuck is an example, and you're right. He does say to her, the power is inside you. Believe in yourself. Chuck is an example of that hero who doesn't have impressive powers, but he can always teach. He can always inspire. He can always, push other people to remember that, hey, I'm a Legionnaire. And if I can be a Legionnaire, you can be a Legionnaire. And I really do like this whole sequence.
Chuck is a good example of why you don't send your interns out for special deliveries.
Dude, he's a general at this point. He's got more credentials than Han Solo did in The Empire Strikes Back. Oh, he's literally the commanding officer of the UP Militia Academy.
Yeah, now, and look what he did. He got all of his kids killed. Speaking of death,
that was the
speaking of death, we also see the death of the Tornado Twins in this, in a very bizarre Jacob's Ladder moment where Dawn thinks that he is saving Dawn from being executed, and in truth, it's just his last dying wish of what he wished he could have done to save his sister Dawn. Yeah. Meanwhile, Bart II, aka Impulse, is okay.
Yes, he survived. Although his mother at this point is named something different. I have to say that I really love Dawn's hallucination of becoming his dad, becoming a cosmic Flash, saving Dawn, saving the universe. I saved her. Everything's okay. Everything's going to be great. This one's for the victims. And then, it turns out they're both dead.
Yeah.
For two reasons. One, it's a nice moment. Remember, Dawn and Dawn have appeared exactly once at this point, 45 years ago. But also, it's the moment where we finally, at the end of that sequence, we see Dirk, the former Sun Boy, looking at his old uniform and questioning his life decisions.
Oh, no. More importantly, is not him looking at his uniform. It is the next headline where they're talking about something burned to the ground. I forget. Maybe it's in the next issue. But there's a news story where they're like, and such burned to the ground today under mysterious circumstances. And it's like, oh, no, that's Sunboy that went all out and burned that building to the ground.
It's a turning point. Now, I don't necessarily know. This issue being the last issue of the whole Cosmic War arc, which I think is is it 5 issues, 4 issues?
We've been, something like that.
Yeah,
it's been since issue 13. So, we're at 4 issues, 5 issues in. Yeah.
Okay. So this is, our watchword has been realism so far. And we've come to a point where we're trying to look realistically at war and PTSD. We're trying to look realistically at things like weapons of mass destruction, at, illegal chemical warfare. But the answer to all of that turns out to be superheroes doing superhero stuff, which is fine. I mean, it's a superhero book, but I kind of feel like as a wrap up to the whole Kundian War, this is a great superhero story. This is not necessarily a great ending to what it seems like the writers were trying to give us up to date. Now, the execution of the Tornado Twins is both brutal and unnecessary, but it really does have, it has an impact. Normally you just fridge somebody's girlfriend. What we've done here is we've fridged 2 people, the Flash's children, and then everybody's going to be like, oh man, you killed the Flash's children? That's not cool. EarthGov has gone too far. they've declared war on everything, and
On its
Devlin
own
Orion is
citizens.
going to step
On
forward.
its own
Devlin
citizens.
Orion. Yep.
Way to
And
go,
Devlin Orion
Earth
is going to fix it. He's
So
going to fix it all.
I will say this issue and the next issue. Right now, again, we look at things, we should always examine things not only from the point in which they were created, but also through the lens of today. And there is too much. Who would have known, Matthew? We didn't have to wait to 2994 for the government to fall in on itself and turn against its citizenry and kill people. Yeah, this is just a little bit too much for me. And I didn't care for either one of these issues because all I have to do is open the headlines and see these exact same things happening right now around us. So, yeah, this was not fun times. And how dare they kill Dawn and Dawn
and Power Boy.
If you enjoy the show, we would appreciate your support. You can find out more and become a Legion Clubhouse member at patreon.com/major spoilers.
Matthew, do you know how to create a cult?
Yeah.
There's actually, I think, a TED Talk on this somewhere on how to create a cult. Here are all the steps that you need to create a cult. The first thing that you need or not necessarily the things you need, but you need a charismatic leader, right? A cult is typically centered around some kind of charismatic leader who demands loyalty and is seen by his followers as godlike or all-knowing. I think on the planet Crag, we could look at the old lady leader as that. We might also look at Sunboy as the charismatic face of the bad guys, but not in the case of the Dark Circle. But certainly there are some charismatic people running around who claim to be part of the Dark Circle. Even the people on our rando have this charismatic leader that they're willing to follow. There's some deceptive recruitment techniques that cults use. They go and look for people who are going through difficult life transitions, like, I don't know, half your planet gets wiped out and you're being starved to death because the relief effort can't get to you. You also have love bombing. Hey, the United Planets have let you down by not bringing you food, but we, the Dark Circle, we love you and we have food for you and we will take care of you and we love you and we over here is where all of your friends are. And maybe if you just think a little differently, instead of saying that Valor is a good person, maybe you should turn against Valor and be part of us. And if you don't turn against Valor, we're going to do some bad things to you and your people. And then, of course, the biggest thing is the tribalism that happens with a cult. And I would really encourage people, if you don't know who Andrew Heaton is, he's got I think he's got a very good set of political/humor podcasts, and also has written some very good books. One of the books that he's written is Tribalism is Bad, and it talks about where tribalism comes from, why it happens, and why it's dumb, and why we should avoid tribalism. But I got to tell you, this issue right here is textbook how you create a cult. All of the things that dangerous cults employ can be found in the pages of Legion of Superheroes. And that's disturbing.
It is, but also cults were, kind of a hot topic right around.
Oh no, we are still within, in 1991, we are still in the middle of the Satanic Panic, for sure. But like I said, just the textbook, what does it take to create a cult? Political cult, religious cult, fanatical cult, whatever it is. All of the markings of the black cult or the black circle, dark circle, are here in the pages of this book. So if someone is like, well, how ridiculous, how do these people fall for these ridiculous cult tactics that we see in the world? Open up this comic book. It shows you right here how the people of Rorando and the people of Crag both fall for the Dark Circle's nonsense. Yeah.
And, they weren't high profile yet, but the people who would, become the Branch Davidians and have their giant siege would have been around, would have been active in 1989, 1990. But first off, we don't say cult, we say community of like-minded individuals. And secondly, it is, again, one of those moments where we say in this book, here's realism, here's real evil. Lex Luthor, oh yes, he can, do evil things, and Black Adam will come and punch you in the face. But the Dark Circle is preying on the weak. They literally have a former Legionnaire in their ranks,
Yeah.
They try to murder the sovereign queen of the planet Orlando.
Well, not only that, they try to get the leader of Crag to say, hey, we're going to murder one of our citizens every 27 seconds until the people who are destroying these ships comes forward. And one person actually dies before Valor is able to step in and say, oh, whoa, wait a minute now. You guys might be a cult.
One thing that I really both love and hate about this issue, I don't know if it's this issue, but this volume of the Legion is where Triplicate Girl, Duo Damsel's home planet of Karg goes from having 2 Gs to having 3 Gs.
I thought it was
Why
really
3
weird.
Gs? Well, 3 Gs, you get better signal.
Well, yeah,
but
5 Gs, that's them putting thoughts directly into your head. So thank goodness it's not 5G.
Right. But they're also a planet of triplicators.
Yeah.
Everybody on the planet can turn into 3 people, so there's 3 Gs.
Well, except for one person. So there is a really weird thing that happens, and I said I wanted to talk more about this because in the last issue, of course, Valor shows up and says, hey, listen, I'm not going to help you put down this fight. If the people want to go over to the dark side, it's their choice. I'm not going to do anything about it. And he does it again when he gets to Crag or Karg or whatever. But at one point, when he reveals himself on Karg, this guy stands up in the crowd and he points up at Valor and he says, the father of our world. What the heck? What does that mean? He's not a progenitor. He's not even from Karg.
Well, remember, the Crisis on Infinite Earths rewrote a lot of DC history. And at this point in time, the Legion 89 book is running concurrently in the 20th century. And it's not quite Legion adjacent, but a young Valor or Largand has appeared a 2 times in that book. Basically, what they're referencing here is Mon-El did not spend 1,000 years in the Phantom Zone in the new continuity. Something weird is going on. So people are like, oh, what? How can this be? A bear is driving. So again, it's another bit of, wait, weird foreshadowing, a new reality, no time trapper. What has Mon-El been up to? We'll find out in 5 episodes.
Yeah, great. Glory to the blood gods, blood for the skulls for the skull throne. That's what
Relief
people are
Freighter
chanting.
Nolan. Relief Freighter Nolan. Please come in, Relief Freighter Nolan.
I'm just really surprised at all of the things that this is still technically under the Comic Code. DC was the second to the last company to leave the Comic Code Authority in 2010 or whenever that was. But there's stuff in this book that I'm just like, there's some dangerous. I know you're supposed to have action, and I know you're supposed to have bad guys that are bad, but there's some dangerous politics in this book. There's some dangerous. Hey guys, how would you like to be all powerful? How would you like to have a group of people around you that do everything you say? Well, here are 5 easy steps for creating your own cult. It's only going to cost you $1.99. Or whatever
in
this issue
1990, to be fair, I believe $1.75.
$1.75. But outrageous.
Shut up. Okay, now here we go. In 1990, and I know I don't want this to come out the way that I know it's going to come out. And please bear with me. I know I'm 53, and I know that I'm an old white guy. But in 1990, there was a cultural belief that being in a cult was bad, and that believing things just because dear leaders said them was bad. And the expectation on a cultural level, on a social level or a socio-political level, was that readers would know this. They'd be like, oh, we know this is bad. And so, they are trying to present, again, something more adult than, oh, this guy wants to take over the universe, and yahaha. These people are a cult, and they're preying on hungry and they're playing on sick, and they're preying
Yeah,
on,
they're playing on
all
lonely
of the
people,
marginalized
people that are,
cultures.
suffering. Yeah.
And B, and this is the most important thing to remember, Stephen, cults are not against the Comics Code Authority, because Max Gaines and EC Comics did not have any successful books
They
about
didn't have
cults
the
that
crypt
needed to
of
be
cults
wiped out.
or
Exactly.
the cult of personality or
Exactly.
the cult face and the Legion of Doom, anything like that. Yeah. No.
Right. If it wasn't
I don't know.
an EC comic, then it's probably not against the Comics Code
Knowing
Authority.
how I have seen people literally fall into cults.
Mhm.
And I've witnessed it with my own eyes, how someone just literally is in all of these things. It was a lonely person who didn't have many friends, had difficulty making friends, and all of a sudden this group of happy people came along and said, we're going to be your buddy. Come along. We're going to go sing songs, and we're going to hug, and we're going to be all these joyous things. And that person changed like overnight. And I don't think for the better, because that person started to absorb and reiterate a lot of, and again, for people that are thinking I'm talking about one current cult, I'm not. This happened like 22 years ago. They just really started spouting the ideology of the group, much like what we see in here. And it was scary to see that person go through that dramatic change, because me being a little bit older than most people, I know what happened in Jonestown, and I don't want to see friends, family, loved ones, non-loved ones get so involved in a cult that they are literally willing to take these broken swords and slit their throats because their leader demands it. And so I don't know. These two issues, I'm sure people are like, oh, these were really great and really intense and really grown up. Yeah, no, they do not hit me right, because, again, of things that are currently going on and past things that I have seen. I don't like to see this. I like to see a cult that is lurking in the dark and wants to, do some satanic ritual or something by stabbing one person, and then the heroes break in at the last minute and save that person. No, there's people that literally die in this comic because the queen lady says, no, go ahead and slit your throats.
Yeah. Let me paint you a word picture for a moment. You're familiar with the city of Russell, Kansas, right?
Oh, yeah. No, that's another place that has some crazy cult people.
It does.
One of our friends lived there for a while. I'm still concerned about him.
In 1991, Russell, Kansas was the center of, UFO I'm going to say a UFO cult. Yeah. So the UFO cult and the people that disappeared. Did you know that two of the people that disappeared were one of my high school teachers and a dear friend of mine who participated in quiz bowl competitions with me?
Yes, cults can get anybody.
Exactly. By all accounts, she was an intelligent, very smart. She was, one of the gifted kids, one of the kids who was ahead of the curve. And it got weird, and the weirdness got to them. And that is something that can happen to anybody. Now, the one thing that, again, I feel like 1990 and 1991 and the Legion of Superheroes.
It's so different. I mean, it is so different. It is so different in 91. When you look at, this is all before Oklahoma City bombing, right? This is all before Columbine. And so I say this not to be dismissive of people who have died, not dismissive of like all the people that lost their lives at Jonestown, or all of the people that lost their lives at many of the other ritualistic cult suicides, etc. But it seems like before Oklahoma City and before Columbine, it was okay to make fun of this stuff. It was okay to go, ha ha, look at these crazy people and how wrapped up in they become to do anything that this crazy mad person tells them to do. It's a good thing we have people out there. And as you said earlier, it's a good thing we're smart enough to see this stuff so we don't allow it to happen to us. And then Oklahoma City, Columbine, Ruby Ridge, Waco, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Kids dying every day in school since Colorado, basically. And we've become desensitized to it. And now I look at this stuff and I'm like, oh no, this is stuff that's actually happening right now. This is stuff that's scary right now. And so it's harder to look at this and say, oh yes, back in those days, it was so light and fun. We should still treat this as light and fun superhero storytelling stuff when it's not in today's standards, if that makes sense.
And
so I understand what you're saying completely.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying this hits me a little bit different.
You and I both have, I don't want to say idols, but I think we do have people that we admire who are partly to blame for the change. And one of my idols, George Carlin, and one of the people whose work you appreciate, Art Bell, are people who brought these things to light under the thought process of,
it's just good fun.
sunlight will disinfect it. Oh, it's fun. Look at these point and laugh. But it also brought it to the attention of people who needed something to, fill in that gap. I love Dan Aykroyd, but Dan Aykroyd is one of those people who, when he talks about these conspiracies, it's hard for me to see that line between I'm Dan Aykroyd and here's the thing that I learned about, and isn't this cool, and shouldn't we all go do that? And it can be difficult, just looking at, I'm not saying blame Art Bell, but I am to some degree saying we can blame Art Bell.
So I will say this about Art Bell. He got a lot of flack for the spaceship suicide people, the sneaker people, whatever their name was, the triangle people, not unlike a circle on their foreheads. But he was not the one that was saying, hey, he was allowing Richard Hoagland to come on and tell this story about what if there's aliens behind this. And of course, what was going on with Doe and I forget what their group leaders were, but Doe was actually in trouble.
Doe and T,
that's what it was. They were actually looking for a way out.
Peep at one point, I think.
Yeah, they were trying to figure out a way out of the trouble they had found themselves in because of the illegal activities they were doing by taking people's monies and separating them from families and taking all their monies, not unlike what Jim Jones was doing. And
in the same time frame, around 79, 80.
No, this was in the 90s when Doe and
that was when it all blew up.
That's when it blew up. Yeah. And so that's when they got
the 70s.
Yeah. They've been around for a while. And so they were using that as the excuse as their out so they wouldn't get caught. Or have to face consequences. I don't know. I think facing jail consequences is probably infinitely better than probably offing yourself and others. But regardless, so Art got a lot of flack for that. On the other hand, he played a lot of things off as, well, I'll listen to it as long as it's a good story. When Alex Jones came along, when Alex Jones was first on Art Bell, Art was like, yeah, this is a crazy story that you're telling, and the crazy story is fun. But then when Alex Jones started to be like Prison Planet, and they're coming to take away, and they're making the frogs gay and all that stuff, Art was like, nope, you're not on this show anymore. And that's when Alex Jones split off, because I think Art did see that there was some danger in this. Now, other people who did pick up on Art Bell's shtick, I'm not going to name names because they're still out there, did lean into the top of the conspiracy pyramid where things become QAnon and anti-Semitic and that kind of stuff, and still lean into that stuff. And so they play that up all the time. So that's when media can become dangerous. And at this point for this comic, I don't think this comic is dangerous. I'm just saying that if you're looking to see how cults are created, and you're looking to see how easy it is for a cult to be manipulated, this comic right here is a good example of that. This is not your chick. This is the anti-chick track, right? Where the chick track would be, I think I'll read a comic book. What is this comic book? You open the pages and Satan reaches out and pulls you down to hell. This is the anti-chick track where it's just like, oh no, cults exist, and here's how easily people get manipulated. The more you know. Right. And surprisingly, there is not a rainbow star at the end of this issue, but there is, and this is the thing that really tripped it off for me, this whole "come join us" speech from the Dark Circle. Where I guess they're just called the Circle here. But it is this long diatribe about, hey, there are these other people out there that are different than us, and they're going to kill you. And the elites are out to get you. Come and join our group. And it's just like, oh no, this is right out of a page of someone's manifesto.
Yes, and it, on the one hand, is a really brilliant distillation of a hunk of the zeitgeist. Because, saying things like, the intellectuals will tell you that the technicalities of law are more important than the safety of the people you know and love. But this, you and I have said it, and it's kind of my unofficial watchword, blame Reagan. This stuff is rolling out of the Reagan administration. And we do see a lot of this, the law and order, why don't they believe you? Why do we feel so lonely and manipulated? Why are these answers and this science and these principles, that is a really, really strong technique. But like so many things in comics, it doesn't work here because in a lot of ways, the aesthetic of comics goes like this. Something there is bad. We talk about it. We do something about it. The heroes are defeated. They mobilize. And then they fight. And you can't really, and then they fight a cult. I mean, even as we see here, Mon-El tries to talk them down.
No, he doesn't. He does try to talk them down, but he is still saying, hey, listen, if the people of Krag or Karg or the people of Arondo want to follow the Dark Circle and elect all of these crazy cult members into their elected representatives, I'm not going to interfere with this. This is on you guys. And then he's like, your father must go now, children, up, and away. And then, the final page is Valor and Shadow Lass were killed on the way to their next adventure.
No, I think it was Ultra Boy was killed on his way back to Earth in a makeshift space glider.
I'm interested to see what happens with that, but we will find out next time. We will find out next time on the Legion Clubhouse. Oh, wait. We're not going to find out next time on the Legion Clubhouse because next time we're breaking away from the Legion of Superheroes and we're going to go back into the adventures of Superman and see what Dan Jurgens is doing over there. Jurgens!
The Legion Clubhouse is a production of Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC, and is produced by Steven Schleicher. Your hosts were Matthew Peterson and Steven Schleicher. You can follow Matthew at Mighty King Cobra and Steven at Major Spoilers. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at Legion Clubhouse. If you have questions or comments, send them to podcast@majorspoilers.com. I'm Jason Inman. Until next time, eat it, Grandpa.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.